Well, I'm finna head to the farmer's market in Birmingham to try to deliver these watermelons. And hopefully I have a good day selling them. Today I'm hoping more for retail because I don't have that many. And maybe like $3 and $4 a piece, each. And hopefully they'll go pretty fast. It's hard to predict the farmer's market because sometimes you go there and be people waiting on you to buy, and then sometimes you have to stay a day or so. It just depends upon how many people are at the market that day.
Watermelons have long been America's favorite melon, with the country's consumption steadily increasing over time and importation going off the roof in order to fulfill year-round consumer demand. But despite the increased import rate, watermelon produced domestically remains the main source of consumption in the United States, with production reaching 3.9 billion pounds in 2016. How are American farmers able to produce this much? Join us as we delve into how American farmers produce tons of watermelon every year. According to Market Growth World, the watermelon market worldwide is expected to grow a lot between 2024 and 2031. Today, the industry is valued at millions of dollars, and by 2031, it's predicted to hit even more millions of dollars, growing each year. Watermelons are grown for their juicy fruit. Despite being huge, they are actually berries that have thick, smooth skin and a juicy inside. Watermelons come in various colors outside like green, white, and yellow, and they can have spots or stripes. Inside, they can be pink, red, or even orange-yellow. This fruit also comes in different shapes and sizes, like oval or round. Some are even grown in special containers to be square. In 2012 alone, American farmers harvested about 39 million pounds of watermelon, which was valued at nearly $520.8 million, and was more than the previous year. In the country, watermelon is best consumed fresh and per capita consumption is fresh. According to consumption data, women consume more of this fruit than men, and about 85% of watermelons purchased at the retail level are for home consumption. Nearly 80% of all watermelons produced in the United States hail from 4 states, which are Florida, Georgia, Texas, and California. Florida surpasses all other states as the main supplier, accounting for a total production of 907 million pounds, or 25% of domestic supplies in 2019. Seedless varieties have become increasingly popular too, and Florida's seedless shipments from January to May 2019 rose nearly 20% compared to the same time period the previous year. While total domestic production of watermelon has not risen, the rate at which watermelons are imported has. In 2019, imports reached a record high of 1.7 billion pounds, making up roughly a third of all watermelons consumed. Mexico is responsible for supplying an average of 80% of all U.S. watermelon imports annually, based on the Economic Research Service's Fruit and Tree Nuts Outlook for March 2020. After the harvesting of these fruits, several marketing methods are used to sell them. For bulk purchase, processing companies do purchase fields of production using a broker or supplier. Some farmers sell directly to truckers or stores. Or in some instances, farmers sell directly to customers at farmers' markets or roadside stands. Watermelons in America are also processed into products like roasted seeds, pickled rinds, and watermelon juice. This fruit is by far one of the most popular and affordable fruits in America. But how far back does the farming of watermelons go in the country? Watermelons are thought to be indigenous to Africa and have been cultivated for over 4,000 years. Introduced into Europe early in the Christian era, watermelons officially arrived in the United States with both African slaves and European colonists. Seeds were also taken to Brazil, the West Indies, the islands of the Pacific, New Zealand, and Australia. In addition to these known African roots, watermelon may have American origins as well. Early French explorers reportedly found Indians growing watermelons in the Mississippi Valley. The colonial watermelon was small by present standards, averaging on the low end of today's 5 to 50 pound range. Unlike today, there were few alternative cultivars, but low-sugar varieties used for watermelon rind pickles were common by 1796. During the Civil War, the South boiled down watermelons as a source of sugar and molasses. Professional melon breeding became more common between 1880 and 1900. By the late 19th century, catalogs were offering 20 to 30 cultivars. Watermelon is a trailing annual with stems that can reach 15 feet in length. It is known in botanical circles as Citrullus lanatus, of the Cucurbitaceae, or gourd family. Other cucurbits include gourds, pumpkins, squashes, cantaloupes, cucumbers, gherkins, and chayote. The globular to oblong melon has smooth skin and weighs 5 to 50 pounds. Watermelon consists of a firm outer rind, a half to 1 inch thick inner rind, and an interior colored edible pulp that may or may not contain seeds. The flesh may be white, cream-colored, honey-colored, yellow, pale red, red, or scarlet. A warm season crop. Watermelons are most productive in regions with at least a 4-month, frost-free growing season. About 80 to 120 days are needed for fruit to mature, with optimum growth occurring with 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit days and 65 to 70 degree Fahrenheit nights. Watermelon is generally not sensitive to extremes in humidity and hence can be grown in many areas. Bees or other insects are vital for proper pollination. The plants require a good water supply during their early growth stages, but good quality fruit depends on warm, dry weather conditions. Watermelons prefer light soils for their extensive but shallow root systems. From soil selection to cultivation to marketing, how do American farmers produce tons of watermelon each year? Watermelons grow best on sandy loam soils with good drainage and a slightly acidic pH. When planted in very heavy soils, the plants develop slowly, and fruit size and quality are usually inferior. Fine sands produce the highest quality melons when adequate fertilizer and water are provided. Windbreaks are advisable on sandy soils to reduce sand blast damage and stunting of young seedlings caused by spring winds. Wind may also cause plants grown on plastic mulch to spin, which can damage the crown of the plant. To reduce the risk of diseases, do not plant on land where vine crops have grown during the past 3 years. Highly experienced growers often prefer an even longer rotation period. Selecting a suitable watermelon variety or varieties is among the most important decisions made by a producer. Planting a variety not suited for the available market and particular production situation leads to lower profits or possibly an enterprise failure. For example, some varieties popular for local sales are not suitable for shipping. In addition to market acceptability, a variety must have an acceptable yield, be adapted to the production area, and have high levels of certain disease resistance features. Light green and gray-green watermelons are less subject to sunburn injury than dark green and striped varieties. Resistance to races of Fusarium wilt and Anthracnose diseases is an important varietal characteristic to consider. Most varieties have varying levels of resistance to one or more races of Fusarium wilt, or Anthracnose. Resistance to race 2 Anthracnose disease, the prevailing race, is not available. Black Diamond, Texas Giant, Florida Giant, and Tender Gold are not disease-resistant. Because no watermelon variety is resistant to all races of Fusarium or Anthracnose, these diseases can infect a variety even though it is labeled as having resistance. No watermelon varieties have known insect or nematode resistance. The major watermelon varieties and types produced in Oklahoma are Charleston Gray strains, Crimson Sweet, Jubilee, All Sweet, Royal Sweet, Sangria, Triploid Seedless, and Black Diamond types. Soil preparation and fertilizer application well in advance of planting promote improved seedbed moisture and firmness. In addition to plowing and disking, the use of chisel plowing or subsoil tillage implemented beneath the row promotes deeper rooting in soils with a compacted layer. Where winds are a problem, windbreaks of fall-planted wheat rye or spring-planted hybrid Sudan will provide some protection to young plants. The windbreak crop between the rows is destroyed with a disc harrow as the watermelon vines begin to run. A narrow windbreak strip can be left standing between rows for wind protection later in the season, but it should be undercut or killed with chemicals to reduce competition with the watermelon crop. The windbreak must be in place early, wide, and tall enough to provide protection just after watermelon emergence. The greatest wind protection is achieved close to the windbreak row. Little protection is achieved when wind breaks less than 3 feet tall, or farther than 30 feet from the watermelon plants. Watermelon can be either directly seeded or transplanted. When direct seeding is used, growers generally overplant and then thin to the desired number of plants per acre after the young plants have become established. This helps ensure the desired plant population, although it also makes the use of expensive hybrid seeds very costly. The high cost of seed has led to increased use of transplants when growing hybrid cultivars. In particular, the seedless varieties are primarily transplanted because of high seed costs, and because they tend to be harder to establish by direct seeding than the seeded varieties. The use of transplants not only reduces seed costs, but also offers the potential for an earlier harvest. That is, growers may use transplants if they are trying to have melons mature early to benefit from generally high early season prices. Transplanted watermelons grown with plastic mulch may mature up to 2 weeks earlier than direct seeded melons grown without mulch. The choice of between-row and within-row spacings of the plants depends on the intensity of management, the soil's productivity, and the desired melon weight. Under dryland farming situations, particularly on sandy soils, 45 to 50 square feet per plant may be required to ensure adequate melon size for standard-size cultivars such as Jubilee or Crimson Sweet. On the other hand, under intensive management, spacings of 25 to 30 square feet per plant have increased overall yield without significantly reducing melon weight or quality. Icebox-type melons may be planted as close as 2 feet in the row, with rows 5 feet apart. In many states, planting occurs between March and May. Harvesting generally takes place from early summer to late summer. Watermelons require moderate amounts of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Soil tests are generally used to indicate the availability of nutrients in the soil before fertilizer application. Watermelons are a relatively long-season crop, and many nutrients can be leached from the soil, especially from sandy soils during the growing period. Therefore, split applications of most nutrients are made to reduce leaching losses. Irrigation is generally necessary for consistently high yields and quality because of the plant's limited root depth, and because watermelons commonly grow on sandy soils with low water-holding capacity. Water deficits during establishment reduce plant vigor and may delay maturity. In severe situations, plants may die. Water stress in the early vegetative stage may reduce leaf area and decrease yield. The most serious yield reductions result from water stress during flowering and fruit development. Although a lack of water at harvest may result in misshapen melons, applying excessive water after stressed melons have reached 10 to 15 pounds in size may cause them to split or burst. Most irrigation in the southeast United States is done with sprinklers. Drip irrigation is gaining in popularity, however, because it uses water more efficiently than sprinkler irrigation. Studies in Florida indicate that 40% less water is required to drip irrigate than to irrigate with sprinklers. In California and Arizona, furrow irrigation is the most common method of irrigation. Some growers use sprinkler irrigation to aid in germination, and then switch to furrow irrigation. Some growers do, however, use drip systems. flowers develop on watermelon plants at a ratio of about 7 to 10 male flowers to 1 female flower. Because insects, usually bees, pollinate the flowers, 1 to 2 bee colonies per acre should be placed in the field when male flowers begin to appear. A watermelon plant seldom produces more than 2 to 3 harvestable melons. Poor or inadequate pollination may reduce fruit set and result in a higher incidence of misshapen melons, thereby reducing yields. The length of the growing season varies with the variety grown, the time of year planted, and the type of cultural practice. Long season varieties transplanted during cool weather may require up to 130 days before harvest. Short season varieties transplanted after soil temperatures have reached optimum levels, on the other hand, may yield mature melons in as little as 70 days. Using clear plastic mulch to help warm the soil and planting with transplants to reduce the establishment time may reduce the growing season by up to 2 weeks. Watermelons are cut from the vine rather than being pulled or broken off. Harvesting crews typically consist of 2 or 3 cutters, 4 to 6 loaders, 2 stackers, and 1 truck driver. The cutters select ripe melons and cut and place them along infield roadways. Loaders pick up and pass the harvested melons to stackers located on a wagon or field truck. The melons are then hauled out of the field to a waiting over-the-road tractor trailer for bulk loading, or to a nearby packing shed for bin or carton packing. For watermelon marketing to be successful, adequate facilities for transporting the crop to market are imperative. Yet adequate transportation for watermelons is frequently a problem. When watermelons are harvested, shippers face competition for trucks from citrus and many vegetable crops maturing during the same period. Because of the difficulty of transporting watermelons relative to other commodities, independent truckers often haul watermelons only if there are no alternatives. Truck availability is tougher in California and Florida since most trucks leave the state with agricultural commodities, but few tend to bring in commodities. Demand for trucks is frequently greater than the supply of trucks. Routinely faced with a long unloading process at terminal markets, extended unloading times, high unloading charges relative to other produce, and the prospect of being stuck with culled melons refused by the receiver, truckers are increasingly moving away from accepting bulk watermelon loads. Compounding the problem is that independent truckers are giving way to small and medium-sized fleets, which generally are not interested in hauling watermelons. The National Watermelon Association has wrestled with this problem for years, once trying to get shippers to cover the cost of unloading for truckers. However, most NWA efforts have been unsuccessful. NWA sent out letters to major watermelon receivers requesting changes in their receiving policies. The request encouraged receivers to unload more quickly and stop culling melons. Melons that are refused are left on the truck, and the trucker often has to pay to dump them to have a clear trailer for an outbound load. Unloading charges are one of the main complaints among truckers. Bulk melon unloading charges can reach up to $200 per load in some areas of the United States. Truckers try to cover these charges in the melon costs, but frequently cannot. The result is that fewer trucks may be available to haul watermelons. The number of available truckers is already decreasing because of stiffer federal regulations for the trucking industry. Receivers are not the whole problem. However, shippers give truckers rolling loads that leave the shipper for a certain destination, but are then diverted to other receivers in other areas en route. This results in added miles and costs for truckers, lower quality products due to the extra time en route, and more claims and problems in going into areas where the trucker is not licensed to operate. Despite USA watermelon production being massive, there are some perilous factors that deter farmers from harvesting way more than recorded. What are some of these factors? The major production hazards affecting watermelons include excessive rain, which can promote disease growth, excess heat, and in non-irrigated areas, particularly when accompanied by other critical environmental factors, can affect the watermelon plant at every stage of growth. For example, germination can be reduced if excess rain is accompanied by cool weather at planting time, causing seed rot. Cool, wet weather following the emergence of the watermelon plant increases the incidence of damping, which also reduces plant survival. Periods of warm, wet weather increase the incidence of foliar diseases such as anthracnose and downy mildew. Excessive rain as watermelons approach maturity can cause a white heart, water the melon's sugar content, and result in the bursting of the fruit. Flooding, of course, can kill watermelon plants if the roots are submerged in water for a day or more. Excessive heat and direct sunlight increase the likelihood of yield losses due to sunscald or sunburn, which causes yellowing of the rind. Normally, watermelon vines provide a protective canopy that shades the melons from direct sunlight. Any disturbance of this protective canopy, such as drought, harvesting activities, or diseases, increases the chance of sunscald damage. Cold temperatures may reduce seed germination. If accompanied by excessive moisture, cold temperatures may cause severe plant losses due to seed rot and damping off. Replanting may be necessary in such situations. Drought may reduce watermelon yields by affecting plant growth and limiting the development and size of the melons. In severe situations, plants may die. Drought can also exacerbate losses due to drought. Hail damages young watermelons by causing scars on the rind. Although the damage is only skin deep, a grower cannot sell scarred watermelons because brokers will not handle them if scar-free melons are available. The most common insect pests affecting watermelons include root maggots, cutworms, cucumber beetles, aphids, thrips, and melon worms. Some cultural practices reduce the potential for economic injury by certain insects. Planting watermelons when optimum growing conditions ensure rapid seedling growth, for example, minimizes the period when plants are vulnerable to injury from seedling insect pests, such as cutworms and root maggots. Spring plantings harvested by early July escape the period when many insect pests pose their greatest economic threat. Aphids are soft-bodied insects that feed on the undersides of leaves with their piercing, sucking mouth parts. The leaves of plants curl downward as the aphids suck the plant sap. Heavy populations cause plants to turn yellow and wilt. Aphids secrete a substance known as honeydew, which collects on the surface of the lower leaves. Under favorable conditions, honeydew promotes the growth of sooty mold, a fungus that blackens the leaf surface. Sooty mold reduces the plant's ability to photosynthesize, thereby reducing melon quality and yield. Aphids also transmit several viruses that can reduce melon quality. Foliar insecticides are effective in aphid control. Cucumber beetles feed on the stems and leaves of young watermelon plants and transmit bacterial wilt disease. Bacterial wilt is one of the more damaging diseases of watermelons. Cucumber beetles can be controlled with foliar insecticides. Cutworms feed on all plant parts, but the most severe damage occurs when they chew on the stems of newly emerged seedlings, severing the young plants from their roots. Maturing melons may also be affected, although damage is usually confined to superficial trails or patches of tan or russet callus tissue on the rind, which diminishes the visual appeal of the melon. Root maggots tunnel in the seeds, or the roots and stems of seedlings, causing the seed to fail to germinate or the infected seedlings to wilt or die. Because cool, wet conditions and soils rich in organic matter provide the most favorable environment for maggot growth. Early spring plantings are most vulnerable to their attack. Maggots can be controlled by plowing litter and weeds deeply into the soil several weeks before planting, so there is adequate time for decomposition and the application of recommended soil insecticides. Field mice and rats can destroy watermelon seeds before germination. The fungicide Thiram, when used as a seed treatment, is a good repellent against mice and rats. When plants are emerging, deer can cause substantial losses by feeding on the young plants. Later in the season, crows, coyotes, deer, and raccoons can feed on ripe melons and cause yield losses just before harvest. Many devices, such as aluminum foil strips, shiny can lids hung from poles, and carbide explosive devices are used with varying degrees of success to keep pests out of melon fields. Losses due to coyotes, deer, and raccoons eating ripe melons usually represent a relatively small part of the crop. Bacterial fruit blotch is a relatively new watermelon disease in the United States. It is thought to be a seed-borne disease, and its symptoms include brownish scabs and eventual souring of the flesh. These symptoms appear about the time that the melons mature. Yield losses can be substantial in infected fields. The disease is thought to be more serious in humid areas than in drier production areas, since the disease appears to be seed-borne. Some seed companies have withdrawn their seed from the market because of concerns over liability for crop losses. The watermelon industry is working with the seed companies to establish an effective protocol for certifying disease-free seeds. The possibility of not being able to obtain adequate seed during the 1995 season is a present concern among watermelon growers. Damping off is a seedling disease in which the stems of young plants rot at ground level and die. Damping off is most serious in the presence of cool, wet weather, which retards rapid seedling emergence and early plant growth. In some years, the disease can reduce stands by up to 50%, while in other years, losses are very rare. Seed treatment and the use of cultural practices that encourage young plant growth are essential in preventing damping. If not controlled continuously, weeds can reduce watermelon quality and yields. Weeds compete for sunlight and moisture and create conditions favorable for disease and insect growth. Weed control consists of hand weeding, mechanical cultivation, and the use of herbicides. Increasingly, growers are using black plastic mulch and herbicides as a weed control method. Plastic mulch controls weeds within the rows, while herbicides are used for weed control between the rows. What did you think about how American farmers produce tons of watermelon every year? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're here, click on the video on the screen for more content like this one.